There is a peculiar kind of power that exists in silence. Not the silence of an empty room, but the silence of a vault. Thick walls, temperature-controlled air. And inside, resting in velvet-lined drawers, centuries of history compressed into diamonds, rubies, and pearls. The British royal family's jewelry collection is unlike any other private collection on Earth. Spans more than 500 years. It has been touched by empresses, survived wars, crossed oceans on the wrists of queens. And for most of its history, access to it has been the exclusive privilege of those born into the dynasty, or those who married directly into its inner chamber. Kate Middleton was born in Reading, Berkshire, the daughter of a flight attendant and a flight dispatcher who built a small party supply business into a modest fortune. She was not born into palaces. She was not born to crowns. And yet, over the course of 14 years, she has worn jewels that have not been seen in a century. She has carried on her wrist a bracelet designed by Prince Philip himself, assembled from diamonds once owned by the last Tsar of Russia. She has placed upon her head a tiara that slept in the dark for nearly 100 years, brought back to life specifically for her. How does that happen? How does a commoner from Berkshire come to wear the most sacred, most intimate treasures of the House of Windsor? The answer is not romantic. It is not about charm or beauty, though she has both in abundance. It is about something far more disciplined, far more deliberate. It is about trust. And trust in the royal family is not given. It is earned. When Catherine Middleton walked down the aisle of Westminster Abbey on the 29th of April, 2011, the entire world was watching what she would wear on her head. Royal watchers speculated for months. Would it be the Cambridge lover's knot, the grand pearl and diamond statement that had defined Diana? Would it be something newly commissioned, a declaration of modernity? Instead, the doors opened and there was Catherine, wearing the Cartier halo tiara. The choice stopped people mid-breath, not because it was disappointing but because it was so intelligently modest. The tiara was commissioned in 1936 by the then Duke of York, who purchased it from Cartier just 3 weeks before his brother King Edward VIII abdicated, thrusting him unexpectedly onto the throne as King George VI. He bought it as a gift for his wife, the Duchess of York, who would become the beloved Queen Mother. According to the Royal Collection Trust, the piece features 739 brilliant cut diamonds and 149 baguette diamonds set in platinum, elegant, delicate, and deliberately unpretentious by royal standards. When the Queen Mother later gifted the tiara to her daughter Princess Elizabeth on her 18th birthday in 1944, the young princess virtually never wore it publicly. It was considered a training piece, appropriate for a young royal finding her footing. Elizabeth lent it to her sister, Princess Margaret, who wore it enthusiastically in the early years of her public life. It then passed to Princess Anne, who wore it to the state opening of Parliament in 1967 before it disappeared quietly back into the vault. For Queen Elizabeth II to lend this specific piece to Catherine on her wedding day was an act of layered intelligence. The tiara was undeniably royal, its provenance unimpeachable, its diamonds real, but it was free from the political weight of the great state diadems. It had been a starter piece for young women entering the firm. It carried a silent message. You are welcome here. But we are beginning at the beginning. There is a crucial difference in the royal world between jewelry that is lent and jewelry that is shared. The first is ceremonial. A duchess receives a piece for a state banquet, returns it the following morning. The second is something rarer and more profound. It is an invitation into someone's private emotional life. In the early years of her marriage, Catherine began appearing in pieces that were not merely valuable. They were intimate. Among the most quietly significant of these early loans were the Bahrain pearl drop earrings. Their story begins not in a jeweler's atelier, but in the diplomatic world of post-war Britain. In 1947, for Princess Elizabeth's wedding to Prince Philip, the Hakim of Bahrain presented a remarkable gift: a shell containing 7 magnificent natural pearls of extraordinary quality. 2 of those pearls were later crafted into drop earrings of simple, breathtaking elegance. The young Queen Elizabeth wore them constantly in the 1950s. If you study the iconic Dorothy Wilding portrait photographs, the official images used on stamps and banknotes throughout the United Kingdom for the first decade of her reign, Elizabeth is wearing these exact earrings. They were the visual signature of a young woman stepping into the most demanding role in the world. When the Queen passed these earrings to Catherine in the early years of her marriage, The symbolism was almost unbearably clear. The same pearls that framed the face of a young queen finding her way were now framing the face of the woman who would one day follow her. It was not a loan of jewelry. It was a loan of identity, a visual echo across 60 years of royal history. If the pearls were an act of personal recognition, the bracelet was an act of supreme emotional trust. To understand its significance, you have to understand the man who designed it. When Prince Philip proposed to Princess Elizabeth in 1946, he was a royal in name but modest in means, a lieutenant in the Royal Navy without the resources expected of a future consort. His mother, Princess Alice of Battenberg, offered him what she had. A tiara she had received from the last Tsar and Tsarina of Russia before the Revolution, a relic of a vanished empire. Philip dismantled it. He used the central diamonds to create the engagement ring. But he had stones remaining, and he wanted to give his bride something made by his own design. Working with London jeweler Philip Antrobus, he created a bracelet bold, geometric, strongly Art Deco in character. It features 3 large brilliant cut diamonds set in platinum, linked by vertical sections. It is, as art historians have noted, a piece that reflects its designer. Modern, precise, and quietly forceful, Philip wore his love for Elizabeth not in grandiose declarations but in the clean lines of a bracelet he had thought about himself. According to Newsweek's reporting on the royal jewelry collection, the Queen wore this bracelet throughout their 73-year marriage, at state banquets, in official portraits for their silver and diamond jubilees, and in the quiet private moments between public ones. In 2015, Catherine appeared at the state banquet for President Xi Jinping of China wearing the Edinburgh wedding bracelet. Consider what that means. The Queen entrusted the wife of her grandson with the wedding gift designed by her husband from the diamonds of the Romanovs. It is an act of generational confidence that goes beyond fashion. It is one woman saying to another, "You are ready to carry what I have carried." The third piece in this intimate archive tells a different kind of story, one about duty, grief, and continuity. In 1975, Queen Elizabeth II made her first official state visit to Japan. The Japanese government presented her with a set of cultured pearls of exceptional quality. The Queen commissioned Gerard, the crown jeweler, to string them into a 4-row choker with a curved diamond clasp. It became one of her most worn pieces through the 1980s, appearing at state occasions and private celebrations alike. In 1983, she loaned it to Princess Diana for a banquet at Hampton Court Palace, where it attracted worldwide attention on the neck of the most photographed woman in the world. Catherine first borrowed the choker in 2017 for Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip's 70th wedding anniversary dinner. Then came April 2021, the funeral of the Duke of Edinburgh, conducted under pandemic restrictions that reduced the congregation to fewer than 30 people. Catherine arrived at St. George's Chapel in Windsor wearing a black mask and the Japanese pearl choker, the Queen's own piece, worn to mourn the Queen's husband. She wore it again at the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II herself in September 2022. The choker has become, in Catherine's hands, something the Queen could not have fully predicted. A symbol of steadiness in the face of loss. By wearing the Queen's pearls to say goodbye to the Queen, Catherine performed the most essential function of a royal woman. She was a figure of visual continuity in a moment when the world was watching the monarchy absorb its greatest grief in 70 years. There is no more complex inheritance in modern royal history than the jewelry of Diana, Princess of Wales. For any other family, a sapphire is a gemstone. A tiara is a headpiece. But the pieces that Diana wore carry something heavier than carats. They carry the full weight of the most intensely scrutinized, most beloved, most mourned royal figure of the 20th century. To wear them is to step into a conversation that the world never stopped having. Catherine's navigation of this inheritance has been, by any objective measure, a masterwork of emotional intelligence. The most visible and most loaded of Diana's pieces is the Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara. It is an extraordinary object, 19 hanging pearl drops suspended from Gothic diamond arches, based on a design originally created for Queen Mary in 1914. When it came to Diana, it became her signature state tiara, and photographs of her wearing it are among the most iconic royal images of the 1980s and 1990s. But Diana famously found the tiara physically painful. She complained that its weight gave her severe headaches, and that the sound of the pearls swinging against the diamond frame was a constant, distracting noise during formal occasions. For Diana, it was beautiful and burdensome simultaneously, much like the role itself. Since 2015, the lover's knot has become Catherine's primary state tiara. And the transformation is striking. Royal correspondents who have covered both women have noted the visible difference. Where Diana sometimes appeared to carry the tiara as a weight, Catherine wears it with an ease that suggests complete physical comfort. She has worn it to state banquets for France, the United States, and numerous other visiting heads of state. She has not replaced Diana's memory in it. She has, instead, given the tiara a new chapter, turned it from a symbol of romantic melancholy into a symbol of professional steadiness. Then there is the piece that carries the most culturally charged history. The Art Deco emerald choker, sometimes called the Cambridge Emerald Choker. The emeralds at its center were originally a gift to Queen Mary from the ladies of India, later fashioned into a stiff formal collar. In their original form, they were every inch the ceremonial royal jewel, imposing, historical, meant to be worn precisely as protocol dictated. And then Diana happened. In 1985, during a tour of Australia, Diana took the choker and clasped it across her forehead as a headband. It was a moment of deliberate, almost punk rock irreverence. A future queen repurposing a piece of imperial jewelry into something that looked like it belonged at Studio 54. The image became iconic precisely because it captured Diana at her most herself. Playful, unconventional, quietly subversive. After her death, the piece was effectively untouchable. To wear it was to invite instant comparison to that specific photograph. In December 2022, at the Earthshot Prize ceremony in Boston, Catherine brought the emerald choker back. She wore it not as a headband but as it was originally intended, around her neck as a choker, exactly as Queen Mary had designed it. Some commentators called the choice safe. It was, in fact, something more considered than safety. By returning the jewel to its original form, Catherine made a precise statement about her relationship to Diana's legacy. She was not erasing it. She was not mimicking it. She was acknowledging it fully and then moving forward. And finally, the daily work of honoring Diana, the quietest and most effective of all. Catherine wears with remarkable regularity a pair of sapphire and diamond cluster earrings that belonged to Diana. According to multiple royal jewelry archives, they were a favorite of Diana's, worn constantly throughout her public life. Catherine has modified them slightly, removing the top diamond element to create a simpler drop profile, and has worn them for everything from trooping the color to international state visits. They are no longer described in most royal coverage as Diana's earrings. They have become simply Catherine's. That transition, from heirloom to everyday personal item, represents perhaps the most sophisticated act in the entire jewel inheritance. The best way to honor a legacy is not to treat it as a relic. It is to make it live. By 2017, something shifted. The early loans had been about welcome and initiation. The intimate pieces had been about family trust. The Diana inheritance had been about historical navigation. But now the Queen began to unlock a different kind of vault, the jewels of state. The pieces that do not merely signal elegance but radiate institutional power. These are the jewels that carry the weight of empire. And by lending them to Catherine, the Queen was positioning her not as a promising junior royal but as the future anchor of the monarchy itself. The most financially staggering piece in this category is also one of the most historically remarkable in the entire royal collection. In 1947, for Princess Elizabeth's wedding to Prince Philip, the Nizam of Hyderabad, at the time one of the wealthiest individuals on earth, did not simply purchase a wedding gift. He instructed Cartier in London to allow the princess to select whatever she wished from their entire stock. She chose a necklace of extraordinary 1930s design. 13 large emerald-cut diamonds in a pave-set formation with a detachable double-drop pendant. According to Stephen Stone diamond experts, cited by both InStyle and Hello magazine, the necklace is estimated to be worth approximately £66 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of jewelry regularly worn by any person in the world. For decades, it was the Queen's own power piece, worn for official portraits, for diplomatic receptions, for the great occasions of state that defined her reign. In 2014, Catherine walked into a reception at the National Portrait Gallery, wearing the Nizam of Hyderabad necklace. Witnesses described the room going quiet. This was not a junior loan. This was the Queen's armor, placed on the shoulders of her granddaughter-in-law. If the Nizam was about financial and diplomatic weight, the next piece was about historical depth. In October 2018, for a state banquet honoring the King and Queen of the Netherlands, Catherine wore a piece that connected her to the very earliest women of the modern British royal family, Queen Alexandra's wedding necklace, a gift from the future King Edward VII to his bride in 1863. The necklace, large pearls surrounded by diamond clusters, connected by festoon links, was designed to be seen from the back of an opera box. It is the jewelry of high Victorian ceremony, built for an age when royal women were expected to embody the grandeur of an empire at its zenith. The Queen Mother adored it and wore it as a signature piece until her death in 2002, after which it vanished from public view for 16 years. When Catherine brought it back in 2018, royal historians noted the layered significance. She was wearing the wedding necklace of the first Princess of Wales of the modern era, Alexandra of Denmark, who transformed the role and gave it its modern social meaning. The connection to her own future title as Princess of Wales was unmistakable, and almost certainly deliberate. And then there is the piece that served as a graduation certificate. The Greville ruby necklace, created by Boucheron in 1903, is a deep V-shaped cascade of diamonds set with rubies in a complex floral design. It came to the royal family through the bequest of the great Edwardian Society hostess Mrs. Ronald Greville, who left her extraordinary jewelry collection to the Queen Mother upon her death in 1942. The rubies were one of Queen Elizabeth's personal favorites, worn constantly at state occasions throughout her reign. In July 2017, at the Spanish state banquet, Catherine wore it. She paired it with a gown cut low enough at the neckline that the full architecture of the necklace could spread across her collarbones. It was a choice that showed not merely confidence but expertise, an understanding of how to let a jewel perform. She was no longer wearing the delicate, floral starter pieces of a debutante royal. She was wearing the blood-red stones of a woman the institution had decided was ready. When Queen Elizabeth II died in September 2022, many expected a contraction. A modern monarchy might retire the grand jewels, streamline, present a slimmer image to a world increasingly skeptical of dynastic excess. What happened instead was the opposite. Under King Charles III, the royal vaults have opened wider for Catherine than at any previous point. And the pieces emerging from them are not merely valuable. They are archaeological. They are jewels that the world had assumed were gone. The most extraordinary moment of the new reign came in November 2023, at the state banquet honoring the President of South Korea. Catherine appeared in a tiara that had not been worn in public for nearly 100 years. The Strathmore Rose Tiara is a 19th-century floral bandeau of diamond roses, given to Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, later the Queen Mother, as a wedding gift from her father, the Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorn in 1923. According to the court jeweler, the respected Royal Jewellery Authority run by Lauren Keena, the tiara was purchased from the London dealer Catchpole and Williams prior to the Queen Mother's marriage to the Duke of York. It is named for both the Earl's title and for the rose motifs that define its design. The Queen Mother wore it in the 1920s and early 1930s, often in the fashionable low-across-the-forehead bandeau style. Then it disappeared. Queen Elizabeth II inherited the tiara upon her mother's death in 2002 but never wore it publicly during her own reign. For a century it sat in the dark. When Catherine emerged in it at Buckingham Palace, the reaction among royal jewelry historians was described as a genuine shock. She was only the second person in history to wear it publicly, and the first in 90 years. The timing was significant. Worn exactly 100 years after the Queen Mother first received it, the choice was interpreted by Lauren Keena of the court jeweler as a deliberate centenary tribute, and a signal of Catherine's long-held ambition to emulate the Queen Mother's model of royal service. Steadfast, warm, deeply embedded in family and continuity. Kate has always signaled that she'd like to emulate the Queen Mother's royal role, Keena told People magazine, and wearing her jewels is an important symbol of that continuity. It was also, unmistakably, a gesture from King Charles, who adored the Queen Mother above almost all others, to his daughter-in-law. A gift of memory, a gift of history, a resurrection. In the official portrait of the new reign, released in May 2023, King Charles and Queen Camilla stand at the center. But look at Catherine. Around her neck is the massive three-row diamond festoon necklace commissioned by King George VI in 1950, using loose diamonds from the royal vault, as a gift for his daughter Princess Elizabeth. It was among Queen Elizabeth's most cherished pieces, worn to state openings of Parliament, to the most formal occasions of her 70-year reign. For Catherine to wear this specific necklace in the official portrait of the new king is a statement of dynastic intention. The chain connects King George VI, who commissioned it, Queen Elizabeth II, who wore it for a lifetime, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, who now carry the dynasty forward. It is, in the most literal sense, a chain of continuity. 10 years ago, a young woman from Berkshire walked into Westminster Abbey wearing a starter tiara chosen with great care to ensure she was welcomed without being overwhelmed. Today, the Princess of Wales walks into state banquets wearing jewels that were last seen in the reign of Queen Victoria. She wears on her wrist a bracelet assembled from the diamonds of the last Russian imperial family, designed by a man who is no longer alive, given to her by a queen who trusted her completely. She did not arrive here by accident. She did not earn this access through mere popularity or good press. She earned it through 14 years of discipline, emotional intelligence, and an almost scholarly understanding of what royal jewelry actually means. Every piece she has worn tells a story, the Cartier halo said. I am beginning and I am humble about it. The Edinburgh bracelet said. I understand that this family's deepest memories are sacred, and I will carry them carefully. The Japanese pearl choker, worn twice to funerals, said, I will be steady when it is hardest to be steady. The Strathmore rose said, I am not just wearing the present, I am bringing the past back to life. And that, perhaps, is the most important thing to understand about this story. The royal jewelry collection is not a costume collection. It is not a wardrobe of pretty things selected for aesthetic appeal. It is a physical archive of a dynasty, of marriages, bereavements, diplomatic gestures, imperial histories, and family love.